As you may know by now, I love the German language. It's not only highly precise and descriptive, but also really flowery and metaphorical. And there are really just many terms that don't translate very well into English. And this can really be a soul-destroying, brain-crunching endeavor for anyone just starting out learning the language. But believe me, once you have the basics down, things can start to get really exciting really quickly, because through language, you can really learn the culture and the history of Germany. And in many ways, it is a little bit like finding the lost keys to unlocking the psychology of the German mindset. I will finally be addressing Doch in this video, as it has been highly requested, but I wanted to start off with some terms that really lend, in my opinion, great insight into the German mentality and the German mindset. Now, obviously, I am generalizing this video. I do appreciate that there are many different exceptions to generalizations, to the rule, to cultural stereotypes. Nevertheless, I do believe that cultural stereotypes are still relevant in today's day and age. The first term that I would like to introduce you today is Weltschmerz. So we're starting out with the big one because I believe that Weltschmerz is really highly relevant in today's day and age. So Weltschmerz literally translates to world weariness or world pain, but we would never really say this in English. We might say something like to feel the weight of the world on one's shoulders. But that still doesn't really quite match the meaning of the German term Weltschmerz. It is a feeling of great sadness and melancholy, which arises from a deep awareness of the suffering and imperfections of the world. The term was coined in the late 18th century by German Romantic authors who were disillusioned with the state of society and just felt sort of a deep sense of despair over the human condition. Does this sound familiar to you? Maybe. Weltschmerz can be seen as a sort of philosophical existential angst, reflecting a deep longing for a better world or sort of more meaning in one's life. It's been explored in literature, art, and music, and has influenced many writers and musicians over the years. So what does this have to do with the German mindset? Well, this is a huge generalization, but I do think there is an argument to be made that Germans often tend to focus on what is not working rather than what is working. And this has great utility, of course. This can lead to ever refined processes, ever improved ideas and concepts, but it can also get pretty heavy, if you're locked in this mindset constantly. And part of what I'm trying to do is to show through comparisons that actually Germany is doing quite a lot of things right, but you often have to step outside of this mindset to really appreciate this. And I have this sort of image of people like Heinrich Scheiner sitting on a bench on the philosopher's park in Heidelberg, lamenting everything that is wrong with the world. But having said that, England did also have its fair share of romantic authors, such as William Blake, Oscar Wilde, and of course, Lord Byron, who Goethe was actually a huge fan of. So yes, Germany and Britain go way back. If you're liking this video thus far, it would really help me out if you could give the like button a short tap. Thank you. The next word which I have on my list, which I think is also a massive part of German culture, is Geborgenheit. Now, Geborgenheit is one of those words that doesn't really have an equivalent English sort of translation. It can be described with words like safety, security, or perhaps shelter. But the word is derived from the verb bergen, which means to protect, to save, or to shelter. It is used to describe a feeling of safety, of comfort, of protection when being in a sort of safe and secure environment. It can refer to physical safety, as in being sheltered from danger or harm, and it can also refer to emotional safety, as in, in a relationship or a community. Geborgenheit really is a common theme in German culture, and it's often associated with values of family, of community, and tradition. I wasn't talking about the importance of stability and safety in Germany, but Geborgenheit really transcends these terms to include feelings of sort of loveliness, of homeliness, and general sort of warmth and coziness. And speaking of things which are lovely, I am very excited to bring you today's sponsor, which is Lingoda. Lingoda is an online language school that will offer classes in German, French, Spanish, and English, as well as business English. I've been learning French with them for the past few weeks, and even though learning languages does get easier once you have learned one, I kind of had forgotten, how much brain work really is involved in learning a new language. It can be really intense, which is why it's very important to have the right processes the right systems in place. One advantage of Lingoda is that you can book classes spontaneously, depending on your lifestyle, because you can pretty much book a live class at any time which suits you. And you can even book it just maybe an hour in advance of the class starting, if you are spontaneous in this way. On the other hand, if you prefer to be more structured and more consistent, Lingoda is currently running 2 language sprints again. And I have to say, this is really a great incentive to get stuck in with learning a new language, because if you show up to every lesson, you could potentially get everything for free. As I just mentioned, Lingoda is currently running 2 language sprints. The first language sprint requires you to attend a class every other day for 60 days. If you show up and you are consistent and you attend all the classes, you can claim 50% cash back. The other alternative is the super sprint. Now, this is not for the faint-hearted, because it requires you to attend a class every single day for 60 days. But if you are consistent and you complete the challenge, you can claim 100% cash back, which is an incredible deal. And also, really, this is kind of how I first learned German. So I did a intensive course, which was 3 hours a day for around 2.5 months. So it is very intense, but I am a strong believer of total immersion. So if you have the time, I think this is really a great opportunity to take advantage of. Click the link down in the description below for all the details, and don't forget to use my language code to get 20 euros off your deposit. And remember, language is one of the keys to unlocking culture. Now, what could be more exciting than that? As being things which are exciting, travel and exploration is another German trait which I see reflected in the language, specifically the word Fernweh. Fernweh is, again, one of those words that just doesn't have an adequate translation in English. It's often described as an ache or a longing for far-off, distant lands, and really is the opposite of Heimweh or homesickness. Fernweh is a compound word made up of fern, which means distant or far, and weh, which means pain or ache. It is a feeling that many travelers experience. We might say something like, to have itchy feet in English, this sort of desire to get away, to get out, and to see something new. It is a difficult term to wrap your head around, because we just don't really have an equivalent English term for this German word. Incidentally, Wanderlust has been adopted into the English language, and you will see this really plastered all over social media, and is often used in marketing campaigns for travel companies. But I do think it fits very well together with this term Fernweh, because it's really kind of the desire to, get out there, to wander, to go hiking, to discover and explore. And I think it is a great representation of the adventurous outdoor spirit that especially Southern Germans really do embody. Frühjahrsmüdigkeit. So this can be translated as spring fatigue or spring tiredness, and it makes perfect sense when literally translated into English, but it's not something that I'd ever heard of before coming to Germany. Winter blues, yes, but spring fatigue, because I always associate spring with sort of waking up and energy and life. And so this seems a little kind of counterintuitive, at least to me. Is this really a German thing, or are there other English speakers who already knew or know this term? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. It refers to a feeling of tiredness or lack of energy that some people experience during sort of this transition from winter into spring. So usually sort of March or April time, people complain of a feeling of Frühjahrsmüdigkeit, and symptoms are often sort of, maybe irritable, sort of bad mood, sometimes headaches, migraines, and even allergic reactions to certain different things. The exact cause is not really fully understood, but some people do seem to see this as a recognized condition, which apparently is sort of connected to, light sensitivity, changes in temperature, and also hormonal and metabolic shifts in the body. All right, now we're coming to Doch. So I have made videos similar to this in the past, and the comment section was often full of comments like, "You forgot Doch," or "What about Doch?" So this is my response to those comments. To put it simply, Doch is a German word which has a variety of different meanings depending on the context in which it is used. So this is why it's not possible to translate this into English just using one word. It really requires quite a few different examples. It can mean anything from "yes it is" or "yes I do" to "but," "however," "after all," "of course," and just used as general emphasis. So if this sounds confusing to you, well, it is. I think the hardest or the most difficult to understand use of Doch is in response to a negative question or statement. Doch can be used to contradict or negate the negative implication in the question or the statement. So for example, if someone were to say, "You don't like coffee, do you?" the response would be, "Doch, I do." And in English, it's really very difficult to translate this. You might say something like, "No, I actually do like coffee." Another use of doch is to emphasize surprise or disbelief when using maybe something like "after all" or "however" or "but" in English. For example, you might say, I thought the concert tickets were sold out, but you did manage to get some after all." As in, "Ich dachte, die Konzerttickets waren ausverkauft, aber du konntest doch welche bekommen." Another usage of the term doch is maybe sort of reflected in the English word already, as in to emphasize something that should already be known or should already have been done, like "Das weißt du doch schon," you already know that, or "Das hast du doch schon gemacht," like you have already done that. And in this sentence, doch doesn't really have a sort of really concise particular meaning. It's just about more of sort of an emotional stressor. Doch can also be used to mean something like "of course" or "certainly," but it's also usually used in the context of negating a previous statement or maybe correcting the previous statement. So if I would say something like "Berlin is not the capital of Germany," you would probably say "Doch, doch, natürlich ist es," meaning "of course it is," or "certainly it definitely is. How could you think that?" So it again sort of conveys a bit of emotion and a bit of disbelief and surprise that you could actually think something like that. So there are a few more intricacies to this word, but I'm going to leave it at that for now. If you are learning German right now, don't worry too much about doch. It's just one of those things that you have to learn with time. I don't think you can necessarily learn this from a textbook. You really just have to listen to native speakers using this and just copy and paste, basically. I think a great way of learning this is to listen to German podcasts, or just listen to people having sort of normal everyday conversations, and that way you might be able to pick up, how exactly this word is used, but there is no real English translation for the word doch. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.